Have you ever imagined transforming into different animals? Picture the possibilities, especially if you were Loki, the Norse god of trickery. In tonight's soothing bedtime story, we'll follow Loki as he embarks on a mischievous adventure. His shape-shifting abilities allow him to cause all sorts of trouble, but will he be able to avoid discovery and the wrath of the other gods? Let's find out as we drift off to sleep with this enchanting tale of Norse mythology. Before we begin, let's set the stage as we normally do, with some deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation. Close your eyes if you're comfortable and take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a bit, then exhale slowly through your mouth. Repeat this with me. Deep breath in through your nose. Hold, then exhale through your mouth. Now, make a fist with your fingers and hand and hold them, all while taking a deep breath in through your nose, holding, and then release and relax your fingers as you exhale. Let's do this again. Breathe in and clench your fist. Hold, and then exhale and release. Now, let's do the same with your biceps. Breathe in and tense your biceps. Hold, and exhale and relax your biceps. Let's repeat that. So breathe in and tense your biceps. Hold, and then exhale and relax. We'll do this one more time, but this time we'll move on up with our shoulders. So breathe in while tensing your shoulders. Hold, and exhale and relax. Guess what? One last time. Breathe in and tense your shoulders. Hold, and exhale and relax. All right, let's start the story. The silver moonlight bathes Asgard in a soft glow. The grand halls and golden spires stand silent against the night sky. Loki leans against a balcony railing, his eyes taking in the sleeping city below. He sighs, running a hand through his dark hair. The gentle breeze carries the faint scent of blooming flowers from Freya's garden. Loki's fingers tap an impatient rhythm on the cool stone of the balcony. The god of mischief craves excitement, a break from the usual calm of Asgard. As he gazes out, Loki's thoughts drift to his fellow gods. He pictures Thor likely snoring loudly in his chambers, Mjolnir within arm's reach. Odin, the All-Father, probably deep in meditation or lost in visions of the future. Even Heimdall, ever vigilant at his post on the Bifrost, seems part of this tranquil scene. A mischievous smile tugs at the corners of Loki's lips. His relationship with the other gods has always been complex, a dance between camaraderie and conflict. They view him with a mixture of fondness and wariness, never quite sure whether his next action will bring laughter or chaos. Loki straightens, his eyes glinting with newfound purpose. Why should I be the only one awake on such a beautiful night, he murmurs to himself. Perhaps it's time to liven things up. With a graceful wave of his hand, Loki's form begins to shimmer and change. His tall, lean figure shrinks and contorts, limbs shortening and fur sprouting across his body. In mere seconds, where the god of mischief once stood, a small, nimble, red squirrel now perches on the balcony railing. Loki, in his new form, twishes his bushy tail and lets out a soft, chittering laugh. He scampers along the railing, his tiny claws barely making a sound. As he reaches the end, he pauses surveying the sleeping city once more. This time, however, his view is filled with possibilities. With a final flick of his tail, Loki's squirrel leaps from the balcony, bounding from rooftop to rooftop with surprising agility. His heart races with excitement as he makes his way towards his first target of the night. The peaceful realm of Asgard is about to experience an unusual awakening, courtesy of its resident trickster god. Loki's tiny paws carry him across Asgard's rooftops until a familiar scent catches his attention. The thunderous snores from a nearby window can only mean one thing: Thor's chambers. With a flick of his bushy tail, Loki leaps towards the opening, his sharp claws finding purchase on the rough stone. He wriggles through the narrow gap, tumbling into the dimly lit room. Thor's chambers are grand, with ornate tapestries and shelves of trophies. In one corner, Mjolnir rests on a velvet cushion, its handle gleaming in the moonlight. Loki creeps closer to the massive bed where Thor lies sprawled, his chest rising and falls with each thunderous snore. The god's magnificent red beard cascades over his chest, and a mischievous idea forms in Loki's mind. With nimble squirrel paws, Loki begins to weave Thor's beard into intricate knots, creating a tangled mess. He imagines Thor's reaction upon waking, the confusion, the frustration, and ultimately the realization that only one being in all of Asgard would dare such a prank. Thor stirs in his sleep, mumbling something about frost giants. Loki freezes, his tiny heart pounding. After a tense moment, Thor's snores resume, and Loki relaxes. Satisfied with his mischief, Loki turns to make his escape. As he scurries back towards the window, a glint of metal catches his eye. Thor's belt of strength, Megingjord, hangs on a nearby hook. Loki pauses, considering the possibilities, but decides that one prank is enough for now. With one last look at the sleeping Thor, Loki squeezes through the window and out into the cool night air. As he scampers across the rooftops once more, he feels a sense of satisfaction warming his tiny squirrel body. The night is still young, and Loki's appetite for mischief is far from sated. His mind already racing with ideas for his next transformation, Loki bounds towards a new target. The peaceful realm of Asgard, still slumbering in the moonlight, remains blissfully unaware of the chaos that will greet it come morning. The air shifts, carrying the sweet scent of magic and blooming flowers. Loki's whiskers twitch as he enters Freya's secret garden, where even the smallest disturbance could have divine consequences. A sleek black cat slinks through the moonlight flowers, its emerald eyes glowing with mischief. Loki, in his feline form, pads silently across the soft grass. The garden is a breathtaking sight, flowers of every color swaying in the gentle night breeze. Loki pauses, his cat ears twitching at the sound of a nearby fountain. He thinks to himself, Freya has outdone herself with this paradise. His gaze wanders over the lush greenery, taking in the magical atmosphere. As he prowls deeper into the garden, a glint of gold catches Loki's feline eye. There, draped carefully over a branch of a silver-leafed tree, hangs Freya's prized possession, the necklace Brisingamen. Loki's heart quickens at the sight of it. He recalls the story of how Freya acquired it, spending a night with each of the 4 skilled dwarves who crafted it in exchange for their masterpiece. Loki thinks to himself, such a powerful artifact, and yet so carelessly left out in the open. Loki Cat carefully maneuvers towards the necklace, his paws making no sound on the soft grass. He can feel the magic emanating from Brisingamen, a warmth that seems to call to him. As he gets closer, he notices how the golden links shimmer in the moonlight. With exquisite care, Loki reaches out a paw towards the glittering necklace. Just as he's about to make contact, a night bird calls out, startling him. In that moment of surprise, Loki's carefully measured movement becomes a clumsy swat. Risingamen slips from its perch, tumbling through the air in a golden arc. Loki watches in a mixture of horror and fascination as the necklace plunges into a nearby pond with a soft plop. Ripples spread across the water surface, distorting the reflection of the moon. Loki's cat form tenses, ready to flee. He can already imagine Freya's anger when she discovers her precious necklace at the bottom of her garden pond. With one last glance at the now still water, Loki darts away into the shadows of the garden. As he races towards the garden's edge, Loki feels a thrill of excitement, mixed with a touch of guilt. He thinks to himself, perhaps that was a bit too far. But the night is still young, and Loki's growing boldness urges him towards his next target. The realm of Asgard holds many more opportunities for a clever trickster, and Loki intends to make the most of them before dawn breaks. Loki's paws carry him swiftly through Asgard, his feline eyes gleaming with mischief. As he approaches the great feast hall, a tantalizing aroma wafts through the air. The massive doors creak open just a crack, and Loki slips through the narrow opening into the dimly lit space. The air is thick with the lingering scents of roasted meats, sweet fruits, and spilled mead. Loki takes in the scene before him. The aftermath of a godly feast is spread out across long tables, still laden with half-eaten delicacies and overturned goblets. Sleeping revelers are sprawled across benches and chairs, their snores creating a symphony of contentment. Loki moves through the hall, pausing to admire Thor's impressive girth, the thunder god's belly rising and falling with each deep breath. Nearby, Tyr mumbles in his sleep, his hand twitching as if reaching for a phantom sword. At the head of the main table, Loki's gaze falls upon a large ornate barrel. He recognizes it immediately as Odin's prized mead, a brew said to grant wisdom and inspiration to those who drink it. The importance of mead in Norse culture is not lost on Loki. He thinks to himself, what better way to cause a stir than to tamper with the very drink that binds these gods together? Loki approaches the barrel, his mind racing with possibilities. He remembers the times when mead flowed freely at divine gatherings, fostering both camaraderie and conflict among the gods. With a mischievous smile, Loki places his hand on the cool surface of the barrel. He can feel the power within, the magic infused into every drop of the divine drink. Slowly, the contents of the barrel begin to change. The liquid mead shifts and solidifies, taking on new forms. Where once there was mead, the barrel now teems with silvery fish, their scales glinting in the faint light. Loki chuckles softly, picturing Odin's face when he discovers his wisdom-granting drink has become a writhing mass of slippery creatures. As he slips out into the cool night air, Loki's mind is already racing with ideas for his next transformation. The night is far from over, and the trickster god's appetite for mischief has only gone stronger. He thinks to himself, perhaps it's time to aim even higher. With a shimmer of magic, Loki's form begins to change once more. This time, he grows larger, his body elongating and powerful muscles forming beneath a coat of gleaming white hair. As the transformation completes, a majestic horse stands where the trickster god once was, its eyes glinting with intelligence and mischief. Loki, now in his equine form, sets off towards his next target. The sound of his hooves on the cobblestones is eerily muffled, as if the very stones of Asgard are conspiring to keep his presence a secret. The realm eternal sleeps on, blissfully unaware of the chaos that will greet it at dawn. The realm eternal sleeps as Loki, transformed into an elegant white horse, gallops silently through Asgard's streets. His heart races with excitement, knowing that his most daring prank of the night awaits at the divine stables. As Loki approaches, he slows his pace, ears pricked towards an alertness. The scent of hay and horse flesh fills his nostrils, familiar yet different in this new form. He moves cautiously, aware that even in the dead of night, Asgard's protectors might be watching. In the largest stall stands Sleipnir, Odin's legendary eight-legged steed. Sleipnir's coat gleams like polished silver, his 8 legs shimmering with otherworldly energy. Loki approaches slowly, marveling at Sleipnir's unique form. Their eyes meet, and Loki feels a strange connection to this extraordinary offspring. With gentle movements, Loki works at the latch of Sleipnir's stall. His horse teeth are clumsy, but determination drives him forward. Each scrape of metal against metal sounds thunderous in the quiet stable. Finally, the latch gives way with a soft click. Loki steps back, inviting Sleipnir to freedom. For a moment, the 8-legged horse hesitates, then steps out of his stall with a toss of his magnificent head. Together, they stand at the edge of Asgard's sprawling streets, 2 legendary creatures poised for adventure. With a playful nicker, Loki breaks into a gallop, challenging Sleipnir to follow. The chase begins, 2 horses racing through the sleeping city. They thunder past grand halls and quiet gardens, their passage stirring the air and rustling leaves. Loki marvels at Sleipnir's speed as they leap over low walls and double back through winding paths. The freedom and thrill of the race fill Loki with exhilaration. As they round a corner near the center of Asgard, a light flickers on in a nearby window. Voices, confused and alarmed, begin to rise from various quarters of the city. Loki realizes their midnight escapade has not gone unnoticed. Loki slows his pace, guiding Sleipnir back towards the stables. As the first rays of dawn paint the sky, he knows that Asgard is about to awaken to a day unlike any other. The night's adventures must end, but the chaos they've shown is just beginning to unfold. Dawn breaks over Asgard, painting the sky in soft hues. But beneath this serene facade, chaos unfolds. Thor wakes to find his beard a tangled mess, his frustration building with each tug. "What in the name of Yggdrasil?" he mutters, his voice rumbling through his chambers. In her garden, Freya stands at the edge of her pond, staring into its depths. "Brisingamen," she whispers, her voice a mixture of disbelief and rising fury as she reaches toward her submerged treasure. The great feast hall buzzes with commotion. Gods and goddesses gather around a barrel where silvery fish now flop and splash instead of Odin's prized mead. The All-Father stands silent, his one eye narrowed as he surveys the scene, anger simmering beneath his calm exterior. Word spreads quickly of the night's mischief. Tyr discovers his sword replaced with a wooden toy, while Heimdall finds his horn filled with feathers. Each revelation adds to the growing tension in the air. The gods' reaction ranged from exasperation to outrage. Thor's booming voice echoes through the halls, demanding justice. Freya's eyes flash dangerously as she wrings water from her gown. Odin remains unnaturally still, his mind no doubt spinning with possible punishments. As the search for Loki intensifies, the trickster god watches from a hidden alcove high in the rafters. He's back in his natural form, a sly smile playing on his lips as he observes the chaos below. He sees Thor's reddened face, notices Freya's graceful movements, and watches Odin's calculated gaze. Loki's heart races with excitement, but a small part of him begins to wonder if he's gone too far this time. The anger he sees in the gods' face is tinged with something deeper. Disappointment, perhaps, even betrayal. He thinks to himself, was it worth it? The thrill of the prank against the wrath of the Pantheon? As the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across Asgard, Loki finds himself at a crossroads. Should he reveal himself and face the consequences, or continue this game of cat and mouse? The trickster god's mind whirs with possibilities, each choice laden with consequences. And as the search for him intensifies, Loki realizes that the greatest trick of all might be finding a way to make things right. Loki's laughter fades as he considers the consequences of his actions. The thrill of mischief still tingles in his veins, but a new sensation creeps in, one that threatens to unravel everything he thought he knew about himself. As he watches Thor's determined approach, Loki ponders the delicate balance between chaos and order. From his hidden perch, Loki observes the unfolding scene below. He sees Thor's reddened face, hears Freya's melodic voice rise in dismay. A part of him wants to revel in the mayhem, but another part feels an unfamiliar twinge of, is it guilt? Loki shifts his weight, the wood of the rafters creaking slowly and softly beneath him. He thinks to himself, was it worth it? His mind wanders to the countless times he's played both ally and adversary to the gods. He remembers the quest to retrieve Thor's hammer, how his quick thinking saved the day. But he also recalls the bitter taste of betrayal, the weight of his actions leading to Baldur's death. The sound of Thor's heavy footsteps echoes through the hall, growing louder with each passing moment. Loki's heart quickens its pace. He knows he should flee, but a part of him longs to face the music, to see if he can talk his way out of this predicament once more. Loki closes his eyes, feeling the warmth of the morning sun on his face. He listens to the commotion below, picking out individual voices in the cacophony. As he weighs his options, Loki realizes that his role among the gods is more complex than even he had imagined. He brings a certain balance to Asgard, challenging the established order and forcing the gods to adapt and grow. With a soft sigh, Loki opens his eyes. He's made his decision. Slowly, carefully, he begins to descend from his hiding spot. His movements are graceful, silent, betraying none of the turmoil in his mind. As his feet touch the ground, he straightens his back and puts on his most charming smile. Thor rounds the corner, Mjolnir clutched tightly in his hand. His eyes lock onto Loki, widening in surprise and then narrowing with suspicion. Loki feels a flicker of fear, but he pushes it aside. Instead, he focuses on the familiar dance of words and wit that has saved him so many times before. "Brother," Loki says, his voice smooth as silk, "what a lovely morning for a stroll, wouldn't you agree?" He spreads his arms wide, as if embracing the chaos around him. Thor's grip on Mjolnir tightens, but Loki notices a flicker of something else in the Thunder God's eyes, a hint of the camaraderie they've shared over centuries. As Thor opens his mouth to speak, Loki prepares himself for the verbal sparring match to come. He knows that his silver tongue will be put to the test, but a part of him relishes the challenge. After all, in the intricate tapestry of Asgard's fate, even the god of mischief has his role to play. Thor's booming voice echoes through the street, calling out Loki's name. The sound resonates off the golden walls of Asgard, a thunderous challenge. Loki approaches Thor with measured steps, his face a mask of innocence. "Brother," Loki says, "what a lovely morning for a stroll, wouldn't you agree?" He spreads his arms wide, as if embracing the chaos around them. Thor's grip on Mjolnir tightens, his knuckles turning white. Thor's massive frame towers over Loki's lean figure, a stark contrast that has defined the relationship for centuries. Where Thor is all brute strength and straightforward action, Loki is cunning and fluid, his true power lying in his words and wit. "Enough, Loki," Thor says, his blue eyes flashing. "I know you're behind this madness. My beard, Freya's necklace, father's mead, all you're doing. Loki raises an eyebrow, his green eyes twinkling. My dear Thor, you wound me. Perhaps your tangled beard is simply a result of restless sleep. Dreams of battles yet to come, perchance. Thor's face reddens, his free hand unconsciously reaching for his knotted beard. Loki seizes the opportunity, weaving a tapestry of half-truths and clever deflections. And as for Freya's necklace, Loki continues, I heard she was planning to clean it. Perhaps she simply forgot where she left it. You know how absent-minded she can be when it comes to her treasures. Thor's brow furrows, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. Loki presses on, his words soothing Thor's anger. And the mead, well, that's clearly a misunderstanding. I overheard some of the Einarhar talking about a new brewing technique, something about fishing for flavor, I believe. As Loki speaks, he notices Thor's grip on Mjolnir loosening slightly. The thunder god's eyes narrow, searching Loki's face for any sign of deceit. But Loki's expression remains open, guileless. Come now, brother, Loki says warmly. Surely you can see the humor in all of this. A tangled beard, a misplaced necklace, a barrel of fish. They're harmless pranks at worst. And think of the stories we'll have to share at the next feast. A long moment passes, tension crackling in the air like a static before a storm. Then, almost imperceptibly, the corner of Thor's mouth twitches. A chuckle escapes his lips, growing into a hearty laugh that shakes his entire body. Loki joins in, his laughter mingling with Thor's. As the sound of their mirth echoes through the streets of Asgard, Loki thinks to himself, perhaps there's hope for us yet, brother. Their laughter fades, replaced by a comfortable silence. Thor claps a hand on Loki's shoulder, his touch gentler than before. You may have a point, Loki, but don't think this means you're off the hook entirely. As if on cue, the sound of approaching footsteps reaches their ears. Loki turns to see a gathering of gods making their way towards them, their faces a mix of curiosity and lingering anger. He takes a deep breath, preparing himself for the next challenge. The game, it seems, is far from over. Suddenly, Loki feels a strange tingling sensation coursing through his body. His form begins to shift and change, limbs elongating and fur sprouting across his skin. In mere moments, where Loki once stood, there now stands a majestic horse with a sleek black coat. Thor's eyes widen in surprise as Loki, now in equine form, gallops away from the approaching crowd. Gods and goddesses gather in Asgard's great hall, their faces a mix of curiosity and lingering anger. Odin stands at the head, his one eye surveying the crowd. He raises his hand for silence, and the air crackles with tension. Loki stands apart from the others, aware of the sideway glances. He maintains his mask of innocence, but his mind races with possible outcomes. Thor takes his place beside Odin, his tangled beard a reminder of the night's mischief. Freya stands nearby, her face clouded with worry as she touches the empty space where her necklace should be. Odin's voice rumbles through the hall. We gather to address the events of the past night, he says. Our realm has been turned upside down by a series of unfortunate occurrences. The gods speak, their voices overlapping. Thor recounts of the tale of his knotted beard, while Freya describes the loss of her beloved Brisingamen. Loki listens, his face a blend of concern and confusion. He thinks to himself, perhaps I did go a bit too far this time. As the accusations fly, the power dynamics within the pantheon become clear. Odin stands above it all, the ultimate authority. Thor and Freya command respect with their presences alone. But Loki holds a unique position, both insider and outsider, beloved and mistrusted. Odin's eye fixes on Loki. Loki, the Allfather says, his voice cutting through the murmurs. What do you have to say for yourself? Before Loki can speak, Odin continues. Your actions have caused great disruption. Yet, I sense a purpose behind your mischief. The other gods fall silent, surprised by Odin's words. Loki feels a flicker of hope. To make amends, Odin declares, you will be given a task. one that will test your cleverness and your heart, he pauses. You are to descend to Midgard and bring joy to a struggling village. Show us that your mischief can be used for good. Loki blinks, taken aback by the unexpected nature of this punishment. He thinks to himself, bring joy? To humans? How am I supposed to do that? But outwardly, he simply nods, accepting the challenge with a small smile. As the council disperses, Loki's mind begins to race with ideas. This new challenge may be unlike anything he's faced before, but the god of mischief is nothing if not adaptable. He turns his gaze towards Midgard, wondering what adventures await him in the realm of humans. Loki stands at the edge of Asgard, his eyes fixed on the swirling mists below. The boundary between the realm of gods and the world of mortals stretches before him like a glittering veil. He takes a deep breath, the crisp air of Asgard filling his lungs one last time before his descent to Midgard. Odin's task echoes in his mind, bring joy to a struggling village. Loki furrows his brow, wondering how he can use his mischievous nature for good. He's accustomed to causing chaos, but this challenge requires a gentler touch. As he contemplates his approach, Loki notices a stark contrast between Asgard's golden splendor and the muted tones of Midgard visible through the mist. The sight stirs something unfamiliar within him, a mixture of curiosity and compassion. He thinks back to the tales of how gods typically interact with humans. Some revel in displays of power, while others bestow blessings. But Loki has always preferred a more subtle approach, weaving himself into human stories and legends. As he ponders his options, a plan begins to form in Loki's mind. He smiles to himself, feeling the familiar thrill of a new trick taking shape. But this time, the excitement is tinged with a warm glow of anticipation at the thought of bringing genuine happiness to others. Loki decides to transform into a humble storyteller. His tall, lean figure shifts and changes, becoming shorter and stockier. His sharp features soften, and a beard spouts from his chin. In moments where the god of mischief once stood, there now stands a simple traveler with twinkling eyes that hint at hidden knowledge. Loki examines his new form, pleased with the result. He wears well-worn but clean traveling clothes, with a small harp hanging from his belt, and a bag of trinkets slung over his shoulder. He clears his throat, testing out his new voice, warm and rich, perfect for spinning tales by the fireside. As he prepares to step off the edge of Asgard, Loki feels a mix of excitement and nervousness. This journey is unlike any he's undertaken before. He's not here to cause trouble or seek personal gain, but to bring light to those in need. It's a new role for the trickster god, but one he finds himself eager to play. With a deep breath and a final glance back at the golden realm he calls home, Loki takes the plunge. He descends through the mists, feeling the shift from divine to mortal realms. As he nears the ground, he can make out the faint outlines of a village in the distance. Loki's feet touch the soft grass of Midgard, and he takes a moment to orient himself. The village lies just beyond a small copse of trees. He adjusts his disguise one last time, straightens his back, and sets off towards his destination, ready to weave stories that will bring joy to weary hearts. As the sun dips below the horizon, a figure appears on the outskirts of the village. The stranger's cloak billows in the evening breeze, and curious eyes follow his progress down the main street. He comes to a stop near the communal fire pit, removing his hood to reveal a kind face framed by a salt and pepper beard. "Good evening, friends," he calls out, his voice warm and inviting. "I am but a humble storyteller, seeking shelter for the night. Might I share a tale or two in exchange for your hospitality?" An elderly woman steps forward, leaning on her walking stick. "We've little to offer, stranger," she says, her voice creaking like old timber, "but we've always room for a good story." The storyteller smiles, producing a small harp from his bag. As the fire crackles to life, villagers draw closer. Children sit cross-legged on the ground, their eyes wide with anticipation. Adults lean against walls or perch on benches, their daily worries momentarily forgotten. The storyteller's fingers dance across the harp strings, weaving a melody that captures the essence of a starry night. His voice rises and falls, painting vivid pictures in the minds of his listeners. He tells of Thor's mighty hammer and is theft by a cunning giant. The children giggle as he describes Thor dressed as a bride, his beard barely concealed by a flimsy veil. Laughter ripples through the crowd, the sound as warming as the fire before them. The storyteller watches joy spread across faces that had seemed so careworn when he arrived. He launches into another tale, this one about Loki's clever scheme to win a bet with a skilled dwarf. As the night wears on, the atmosphere in the square transforms. Where once there was tension and weariness, now there is mirth and wonder. Children who had been listless now sit enraptured, their imaginations alight with visions of far-off realms. Adults who had been burdened by the day's toils now laugh freely, their shoulders relaxed and spirits lifted. The storyteller finishes his last tale with a flourish of his harp. Applause fills the square, punctuated by calls for more. He holds up his hands, a gentle smile on his face. Alas, my friends, the hour grows late. But fear not, for stories have a magic all their own. They linger in the heart and mind, bringing light to even the darkest days. As the villagers reluctantly disperse, heading to their homes with lighter steps and brighter eyes, the storyteller watches with satisfaction. He thinks to himself, perhaps this is a different kind of mischief, one that leaves joy in its wake instead of chaos. Little does he know that his simple act of kindness is about to spark unexpected changes in this once somber village. Dawn breaks over the village, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold. Loki, still disguised as the humble storyteller, steps out of his small hut. He rubs his eyes, surprised by the bustling energy that greets him. The villagers move with a newfound lightness, their faces bright with lingering smiles. Children dash past, reenacting scenes from the previous night's tale. A young boy pretends to be Thor, swinging an imaginary hammer, while his sister takes on the role of the cunning Loki. The trickster god feels an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest at the sight. As he walks through the village, Loki notices subtle changes. The air feels different, filled with cheerful conversations. In the square, women chat as they hang freshly washed linens, their movements more energetic than before. Near the well, two men work together to repair a bucket, their task punctuated by occasional chuckles. The smell of freshly baked bread wafts from a nearby home, and Loki's stomach rumbles. He decides to check on the old woman who had welcomed him. As he approaches her cottage, he hears her humming a tune from his harp playing. The old woman greets him warmly. "Good morning, storyteller," she says, her eyes crinkling. "Your tales have brought more than just entertainment to our village. They've given us hope." As they share a simple breakfast of bread and honey, Loki feels an unfamiliar sense of satisfaction. This feeling, he realizes, is different from his usual mischief. It's deeper and strangely fulfilling. The trickster god ponders his evolving perspective. He thinks to himself, perhaps my silver tongue can be used for more than just chaos. Maybe there's power in bringing joy to others. Before leaving for Asgard, Loki decides to leave one final gift. He pulls out a small, carved wooden box and imbues it with magic. When opened, it will release gentle laughter, reminding the villagers of their shared joy. Loki places the box in the village square with a note, for when you need a reminder to smile. He watches as curious villagers gather around this parting gift. With a satisfied nod, he turns towards the outskirts, ready to begin his journey back to Asgard. The path ahead seems brighter somehow, illuminated by the warmth of shared stories. Loki approaches the base of Bifrost, the majestic rainbow bridge connecting the realms. He gazes up at its shimmering expanse, feeling a mix of anticipation and unease. The crystalline surface glitters with every color imaginable as he takes his first steps. As Loki nears the entrance, he spots Heimdall, the all-seeing guardian of the Bifrost. The watchman's golden armor gleams in the ethereal light, his piercing gaze fixed on the approaching god. Heimdall, Loki calls out, his voice carefully neutral. I've returned from my task in Midgard. The watchman's eyes narrow with suspicion. So I see, he replies, his deep voice resonating with power. And what mischief have you wrought among the mortals this time, Loki? Loki thinks back to the smiling faces of the villagers, the sound of their laughter echoing in his mind. No mischief this time, Heimdall. Only stories and laughter. Heimdall raises an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. Loki wonders if the watchman observed his interaction with the villagers, or if his suspicion stems from their long-standing rivalry. You doubt me, Loki asks, a hint of challenge in his voice. Heimdall's golden eyes seem to glow as he regards Loki. The tension between them is palpable, years of mistrust simmering beneath the surface. But then, something unexpected happens. Heimdall's stern expression softens ever so slightly. I did watch, he admits, his voice tinged with surprise. I saw you bring joy to those mortals. It was unexpected. Loki blinks, taken aback by Heimdall's words. He feels a warmth spread across his chest, a sense of pride he's not accustomed to. Well, he says, a small smile playing on his lips. Perhaps I'm capable of more than just chaos. Heimdall nods slowly, stepping aside to allow Loki passage across the Bifrost. The other gods await your return, he says. They will want to hear of your deeds in Asgard. As Loki steps onto the Rainbow Bridge, he takes a deep breath. The final confrontation with the Pantheon lies ahead, and he wonders how they will receive him. Will they see the change in him, or will their mistrust run too deep? Loki begins his journey across Bifrost, each step bringing him closer to the realm eternal and the judgment of his fellow gods. The bridge hums with energy beneath his feet, and the cosmos stretches out around him in all its glory. Whatever awaits him in Asgard, Loki knows that his experiences in Midgard have changed him in ways he's only beginning to understand. The gods gather in Asgard's grand hall, their eyes fixed on Loki as he enters. Tension crackles in the air. Odin sits upon his throne, his one eye piercing. Thor stands nearby, his tangled beard a reminder of Loki's past mischief. Freya watches with cautious interest. Loki recounts his experiences in Midgard, his voice carrying through the hall. He speaks of the village, the stories he shared, and the joy he brought. As he talks, a warmth spreads throughout his chest, a sense of pride in his accomplishment. The gods listen intently, their reactions mixed. Thor's brow furrows as he struggles to reconcile this new side of his brother. Loki concludes by mentioning the gift he left behind, a box that releases the sound of gentle laughter. A murmur ripples through the gathered gods. Loki senses their conflicting emotions, surprise, disbelief, and perhaps a glimmer of hope. He feels torn between his newfound ability to bring joy and wondering if he's lost something of himself. Odin leans forward, his gaze intense. You speak of bringing happiness to mortals, Loki, but how are we to trust that this is not merely another of your tricks? Freya steps forward, her voice gentle but firm. I saw the change in the village through Heimdall's sight. The joy Loki brought was real. Thor nods slowly. Perhaps there is more to my brother than I realized. The debate continues, with gods arguing both for and against Loki's apparent change of heart. Loki listens, his mind whirling with conflicting emotions. Finally, Odin raises his hand for silence. Loki, he begins, his voice resonating with power. You have shown that your talents can be used for good as well as mischief. This is commendable. He pauses, his eye boring into Loki. However, One act of kindness does not erase centuries of chaos. You must strive to maintain balance in your actions moving forward. Loki nods, accepting the cautious praise and the warning. As the gathering disperses, he ponders the path ahead and the changes stirring within him. As the golden sun dips below the horizon, Loki stands alone on a balcony overlooking Asgard. The fading light paints the sky in soft hues, casting a warm glow over the eternal realm. He takes a deep breath, inhaling the crisp evening air, and lets his mind wander over the day's events. The laughter of the villagers still echoes in his ears, a sound so different from the chaos he usually leaves behind. Loki feels an unfamiliar warmth in his chest as he recalls the joy he brought to those mortals. He thinks to himself, is this what it feels like to use my powers for good? As twilight settles, Loki's gaze sweeps across Asgard. The distant sound of the feast hall reaches his ears, and he can almost picture the other gods gathered there, discussing his unexpected actions in Midgard. Loki's fingers trace patterns on the cool stone of the balcony railing. He ponders his place among the gods, a position that has always been tenuous. For centuries, he's reveled in his role as a trickster, but now he wonders if there might be more to his nature than even he realized. The stars begin to twinkle, reminding Loki of the wonder he saw in the eyes of the village children. He smiles to himself, remembering how their laughter had lifted the heavy atmosphere of the struggling village. As night fully descends, Loki makes a decision. He thinks to himself, perhaps I can find a balance between chaos and kindness. He turns from the balcony, a new spark of excitement in his eyes, and begins to plan his next adventure. Walking back into the halls of Asgard, Loki's lips curve into a mischievous smile. The other gods may think they have him figured out, but the trickster god always has one more surprise up his sleeve. The stars twinkle brightly overhead, as if they too are curious to see what Loki will do next. As the night deepens, Loki's journey comes to a close. The trickster god found unexpected magic in storytelling, discovering how laughter could brighten even the gloomiest corners of existence. His transformation from mischief maker to storyteller brought a new warmth to Asgard. The stars twinkle softly overhead as Loki stands on his balcony. A gentle breeze plays with his dark hair. His lips curl into a mysterious smile as he gazes out at the realm eternal. The god of mischief's future adventures remain unknown, but his presence has forever changed the fabric of Asgardian life. As we drift towards sleep, we carry with us the echoes of Loki's tales. His journey reminds us of the power of stories to transform not just the listener, but the teller as well. In the quiet of the night, we wonder what dreams may come, inspired by the unexpected path of a once troublesome god.